Now let's talk about the issue with Corey Unlin's unit, the secondary.
Right. Like, is this a good pick because of this?
Right? Like, we know that the defensive line is great. We know that the linebackers are great. We don't know about the secondary. It's gotten, I mean, the defense is all time great, and maybe we're overreacting, but when the Niners do get beat, it's like deep, and, it's like busted coverages. So they had two Pro Bowlers, Trevarius Ward, who's an alternate, and Talanoa Hufanga, who's a starter and got burned for 2 touchdowns in this game. I think the issues maybe start with Talanoa, at least in our minds, because he's the one giving up the touchdowns. What do you see the issue is with this defense?
I think they're spoiled. The secondary is spoiled by Nick Bosa in the pass rush. And so they're counting on that pass rush getting there. They're jumping on the short routes, and therefore they get beat deep. So when they
overly aggressive.
Yeah. And so they're gonna have to dial that back, especially when they get to the playoffs and they go up against good quarterbacks who can buy themselves time, or teams with good offensive line who can help buy the quarterback some time. Because if they keep playing the way they are, that's my biggest. I talked about earlier that Brock Purdy was my biggest worry for this team going into the postseason. It's now the secondary getting diced up by quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, or even guys in the NFC like Jalen Hurts. That's my biggest concern for this team in the postseason, and I'm hoping they figure it out, or Nick Bosa just keeps going crazy and applying that pressure so they can continue to do that.
My issue with the secondary is I think the league got it wrong as to who the best player in the Niners secondary is. They said it's Talanoa. It's not Talanoa. It's not. He's a good player, but for all the plays he makes, it seems like he gives them up. I mean, he's a boomer bust player. To me, the best player in the Niners secondary is Charvarius Ward. And when he's 100% healthy, he's a shutdown, lockdown corner. And I've always felt that a shutdown, lockdown corner is just as valuable, if not more valuable, than an elite edge rusher, because he shuts down a half of the field. The rest of the defense doesn't have to worry about that side of the field, and it makes everyone else stronger. So when he hasn't been 100% healthy, that's when the secondary has seemed to get exposed. And he's not 100% healthy right now. He's coming back from a concussion. Earlier in the year, he was coming back from a groin injury. And when he's played at less than 100%, the Niners have gotten torched in secondary. So if he's good to go in the playoffs, their secondary should be money. Even though Diamondre Lenoir's not great, Hufunga's overrated, Gibson's overrated. I mean, really, everyone's a little overrated in the secondary other than Ward. Ward's the truth. But he's also been dinged up here and there. So his health is paramount to this team in this Super Bowl run. His health.
Yeah, and then you got Jimmy in the nickel. You'd almost. I think they would be doing better a little bit. Not that Jimmy's doing bad in the nickel. He's been doing great lately. He started off rough, but he's been doing really good lately. But I think this defending the deep pass game would benefit with Jimmy Ward's leadership and experience a little bit. But I mean, that's probably not going to happen. He's going to probably stay at the nickel.
But down the stretch, like in their big games, they're going to need Jimmy Ward on tight ends. They're going to need him on Hawkinson if they play Minnesota, and they're going to need him on Kelsey if they play Kansas City.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, I mean, keep in mind also, Jason Verrett never worked out. Emmanuel Mosley was injured. Those two guys. I mean, if you had Emmanuel Mosley, Jason Verrett, and Charvarius Ward, like, that's crazy, right? And so they had to make do after losing 2 really good corners. And so that's part of it too. But luckily, this pass rush has held it together. But again, if you got a great offensive blocking scheme, or just a great offensive lineman, or a quarterback that can buy time, you could see some problems.